Hi everyone, I'm Tanya Malik. I'm a biohacker, a functional nutritionist, and the founder of the Biohackers Company and the Longevity Lab. In these episodes, I share science backed insights for longevity and actionable biohacks for age reversal. And this particular episode is an extract from my Master Gut Health workshop last month. Sometimes high cholesterol levels is because of bile dysfunction. It's not always something that you need to jump on a statin wagon for, right? Just make sure that your enzyme regulation is correct if you are seeing your cholesterol levels raising. All right, gut-brain axis. Now, like I spoke about earlier, actually, it's not just gut, right? Your gut has an access with everything. We already saw how C4 leads to skin issues. We've spoken about stress so many times, but your gut and brain has a direct access, not just the vagus nerve, but in general, the neurotransmitter relationship and the to and fro communication that happens between your gut and your microbiome, or this mini universe that lives inside, is very, very complex, but very, very tangible, right? Vagus nerve we spoke about. So one of the things that you can do is to strengthen your vagus nerve, which will go a long way in healing your gut microbiome. Things like breathing exercise, things like humming, even singing, just put on a song and sing out loud and dance can do wonders for your vagal nerve. And that is why chanting is in ancient wisdom believed to be very, very healthy for us, because it is not only great for our meditative or mental state, but wonderful for the gut microbiome. So if whichever one of these works for you, pick up one habit and make it a habit every single day, whether it's chanting, whether it's singing, whether it's humming or breathing exercises. Stress and perspective. I know we are out of time, but I do want to spend some time on this, because the first thing we do is, we've spoken about stress. I spoke about cortisol's relationship with the enzyme regulation, but we end up, socially and even culturally, even from a mindset perspective, making stress the devil, or stress the culprit, or the bad guy. In reality, stress in isolation is actually something very, very good for us. And I'll give you a small example, right? Exercise is stress, physical exercise. What are we doing? We're actually putting physical stress on our muscles. In most cases, we are tearing and breaking a muscle. And by doing that, we are telling the body that, hey, we want to become stronger. The body is going to release growth hormones. The body is going to repair that muscle to make it stronger than the stress that caused it to break, which means that stress actually not only makes us release wonderful hormones like growth hormone, tells our bodies, hey, I want our mind and our body that, hey, I'm still alive and I want to be stronger. It makes us stronger. And physical is one example. The same thing happens mentally, right? A stress trigger comes, let's say it's a presentation, or it's I don't know, a confrontation, for example. So a trigger happens if we have the resilience and the mental capacity that we've built, which means that this is a acquired skill, right? It's not something that's there or not there. If we've built it, we will actually get the cortisol spike. And like I said earlier, cortisol is not bad. Chronically high cortisol is bad. But if the stress trigger comes, cortisol is released. If we get into action, because we need cortisol to move, right? To get into action. Every morning, our cortisol peaks, by the way. That's how we wake up and that's how we come into action. Sometimes people who are not able to get out of bed and they feel extremely tired, it's actually adrenal fatigue because your cortisol is not rising enough. And that's why we don't even have the motivation to get out of bed. So cortisol is important. The trigger happens, the spike happens. If we get into action mode and we start planning and making, action plans, and we get the dopamine release because now we're excited, we are working towards something and we actually do it, everything comes back to normal. We've actually created new neural pathways. We've given our brain the dopamine kick. We've done wonderful things for our body physiologically and biologically. But when the trigger becomes chronic, let's say there is a relationship stress and now we don't know how to deal with it, we are constantly responding to it by releasing cortisol because we are only anxious and we're not able to create a plan of action, we're not able to address it, we're not able to confront it, and it's consistently triggering us. This cortisol is only going to keep rising. Every time it's high, it's disrupting and breaking the circadian rhythm of our adrenal gland, is disrupting our pancreatic health and a lot of other things. Obviously, blood sugar is high, so it's taxing and causing oxidative stress. But eventually, our adrenal gland, our pituitary gland and our hypothalamus is going to get tired. It will be like, how much cortisol can I release? How much stress can I take? And it will go into what we know in functional healing as adrenal fatigue, and your body will stop creating or really reduce creating cortisol. And this is when we get into a wrecking of havoc, right? So, the thing or the point I'm trying to make here, other than explaining the biological factors, is that stress trigger in most cases is out of our hands. We're living in complex communities, in complex social structures, in complex political structures today. Stressors are inevitable. What we can change is our mindset, our ability, and our perception of stressors to stop looking at them as causing us issues and create a framework, a support system, a exercise routine, a breathing or a meditative routine that gives us the ability to avoid a trigger becoming chronic and continuously releasing or giving us that chronic release. And something as simple as, let's say if your spouse has a habit that is your trigger. Every time that happens, go for a walk. Convert that cortisol spike into action. We are animals, right? Fight or flight is the syndrome that happens when we become stressed. That's the bare what do you say, core biological response. We of course now live in complex structures, and that's why triggers are not necessarily a lion coming to eat us. But from a biological standpoint, stress is stress. So if there is an emotional trigger, create a system. If meditation, breathing is not your cup of tea, I'm telling you, just go for a walk at that point in time, and you would have channelized that cortisol into action. So you're not letting that cortisol remain high. Creating this perception shift, creating this framework will go a long way, along with everything else we spoke about in terms of supplementation and healing protocols. Even if you do those and you don't correct this is going to continuously throw it out of balance. And we saw that how this was a root cause for literally every problem. And trust me when I say this, it's not just in this gut health workshop. In every consultation, in every workshop, whether it's metabolic health or age reversal, stress is always a root cause for imbalances. And that's the reality that we live in. So largest takeaway I would say is creating a growth mindset, creating a framework to convert your cortisol into dopamine, or making or turning it into action, will go a long way in healing you. And as an extension to that comes to sleep. Sleep, actually, I do a lot of deep dives on sleep because I know a lot of us struggle with sleep. And again, cortisol or stress is to be blamed, but there are other factors. But right, for the purpose of this workshop, I'm purely talking about the importance of sleep for your gut health, your microbiome health. When you sleep, your body heals itself, your body cleans itself, your gut microbiome resets itself, and your brain literally washes itself. And it's literal. The fluid from your spine actually washes your brain, and your brain restructures itself. Everything you've learned the last day, or the information you've absorbed the last day, gets structured into memory or neurons. Sleep goes a long way. And to the point where I say, when it comes to functional healing, you can do everything right. Even when it comes, and I'm talking about something as tangible and aesthetic as weight loss. You could be doing everything, but if you're not sleeping, weight loss is not going to happen. Contrary to that, you just correct your sleep and don't do anything else, you'll see your weight fluctuate and drop. So sleep is again another foundational aspect, right? So right now, in this last portion, I'm talking about the foundational aspects of what we can do to sustain good gut health. Everything we spoke about earlier are treatments. You're going to do that for a period of time till you feel better. But these, what we're talking about now, is foundational aspects. And exercise. Walking after a meal, irrespective of stomach acid levels, can do wonders, but adding exercise protocols. And I'm not going to deep dive into what is right, what is wrong, but adding any form of exercise and movement protocols will do wonders for your gut and metabolic and mental health.